Welcome to Dream Beyond Earth, where we drift gently through the mysteries of existence, one peaceful revelation at a time. Tonight, we're embarking on a journey into one of the most extraordinary ideas ever conceived by the human mind. A theory so profound, so quietly revolutionary, that it suggests something remarkable about your very existence. What if I told you that according to quantum physics, there might be a version of you that never experiences death? Not in some mystical or spiritual sense, but as a direct consequence of the fundamental laws that govern our universe. It's a question that sounds like science fiction, yet emerges from the most rigorous mathematics we know. As you settle into this moment, breathing slowly, letting your thoughts drift like autumn leaves on still water, consider this gentle paradox. Every night when you close your eyes, you surrender consciousness without fear, trusting that you'll awaken to another day. But what if the universe itself has been quietly ensuring your continuity in ways you never imagined? Before we float deeper into this cosmic mystery, I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Are you tucked beneath warm blankets in a quiet bedroom, or perhaps gazing out at stars from somewhere far from city lights? Wherever you are, I hope you're comfortable, safe, and ready to let your mind wander through the soft boundaries between what we know and what we wonder about existence itself. If this gentle exploration brings you peace, a like and subscribe would mean the world to this sleepy corner of science. And to those of you already part of our dreaming community, thank you. Your presence makes these midnight journeys possible. Now, I'll try not to make tonight's revelation so fascinating that it keeps you wide awake. But if it does, at least you'll drift off knowing something extraordinary about the nature of reality itself. A small price for a restless night, perhaps. So let's begin, shall we? With a story that starts in the most unlikely place. Not in the vast cosmos or the depths of space, but in the mind of a physicist who dared to imagine what happens when quantum mechanics meets the ultimate mystery of consciousness itself. In the year 1935, as the world teetered on the edge of great change, a brilliant physicist named Schrödinger sat in his study, troubled by a conversation he'd had with Albert Einstein. The two great minds had been wrestling with the strange implications of quantum mechanics, that peculiar branch of physics that describes the behavior of the tiniest particles in our universe. What bothered them wasn't the mathematics, which worked beautifully, but what those equations seemed to be saying about the nature of reality itself. Picture, if you will, the soft glow of lamplight falling across Schrödinger's desk as he contemplated a problem that would echo through the decades. Quantum mechanics suggested that particles could exist in multiple states simultaneously, a phenomenon called superposition. An electron could be spinning both clockwise and counterclockwise at the same time, or a photon could be travelling through two different paths at once until the moment someone observed it. Only then would it choose a single state, collapsing from all possibilities into one reality. But Schrödinger found this idea deeply troubling when extended beyond the microscopic world. If quantum mechanics truly governed all of reality, then why didn't we see such strangeness in everyday life? Why didn't chairs exist in multiple positions simultaneously? Why didn't cats exist in states of being both alive and dead at once? And so, in a moment of inspired frustration, Schrödinger crafted a thought experiment that would become one of the most famous paradoxes in all of science. He imagined a cat sealed inside a box with a diabolical device. This device contained a radioactive atom, a Geiger counter, a hammer, and a flask of poison. The radioactive atom had exactly a 50% chance of decaying within an hour. If it decayed, the Geiger counter would detect it, triggering the hammer to break the flask and release the poison, killing the cat. If the atom didn't decay, the cat would remain alive. But here's where the quantum strangeness crept in. According to the mathematics of quantum mechanics, before anyone opened the box to look, the radioactive atom existed in a superposition of both decayed and not decayed states, which meant, absurdly, that the cat existed in a superposition of both alive and dead states. The cat was neither fully alive nor fully dead, but somehow both, suspended in a ghostly limbo of possibility until the moment someone lifted the lid. Schrödinger intended this as a criticism, a way to show how ridiculous quantum mechanics became when applied to the larger world. But like many thought experiments in physics, his imaginary cat took on a life of its own, becoming not just a paradox but a doorway into deeper mysteries about the nature of observation, reality, and consciousness itself. As you let this image settle in your mind, the cat existing in its strange state of quantum uncertainty, notice how it mirrors something profound about existence itself. We live suspended between countless possibilities, our futures branching like rivers through an infinite landscape of maybe and perhaps. Each moment contains within it the seeds of all the moments that could follow. The question that would haunt physicists for decades was not just about cats in boxes, but about something far more personal. If quantum mechanics truly describes reality, and if consciousness plays a role in collapsing quantum possibilities into single outcomes, then what happens to your consciousness when faced with the ultimate quantum event? What happens when the universe must choose between your existence and your non-existence? 22 years after Schrödinger's cat first prowled through the corridors of physics, a graduate student at Princeton University was having trouble sleeping. It was 1957, and Hugh Everett III found himself lying awake, wrestling with the same questions that had troubled the great physicists of the previous generation. But unlike his predecessors, Everett wasn't content to accept the standard answers. The prevailing wisdom, known as the Copenhagen interpretation, suggested that quantum superpositions collapsed when observed, transforming multiple possibilities into single realities. But Everett saw a fundamental problem with this view. Who or what was doing the observing? And why should observation be so special? What if the mathematics of quantum mechanics were trying to tell us something far more radical? Picture young Everett in his dormitory room, papers scattered across his desk, equations flowing like poetry across countless pages. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the world seems most malleable and dreams feel closest to waking life, he began to formulate an idea so bold it would revolutionize our understanding of existence itself. What if, Everett wondered, quantum superpositions never actually collapsed? What if every possible outcome of every quantum event actually occurred, not in some abstract mathematical sense, but as real, physical branches of reality? What if the universe was constantly splitting, like a river dividing into countless streams, with each stream representing a different version of everything that could possibly happen? This was the birth of what would later be called the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. In Everett's vision, Schrödinger's cat wasn't trapped in a limbo between life and death. Instead, the moment the quantum event occurred, the universe split into two parallel branches. In one branch, the atom decayed, the poison was released, and the cat died. In the other branch, the atom remained stable, and the cat lived. Both outcomes were equally real, equally valid, existing in parallel universes that could no longer interact with each other. But Everett's idea went far beyond cats in boxes. If the universe constantly splits into parallel branches, then every moment of your life represents a branching point where multiple versions of you continue along different paths. The version of you listening to these words right now is just one branch among countless others. There are versions of you who made different choices, took different paths, lived different lives. Some are sleeping peacefully, others are awake, perhaps listening to different stories or no stories at all. When Everett first presented his thesis to the physics community, the reception was less than enthusiastic. Niels Bohr, the father of the Copenhagen interpretation, dismissed the idea entirely. Other physicists found it too radical, too strange to take seriously. How could anyone accept that reality was constantly branching into infinite parallel worlds? But Everett persisted, driven by the mathematical elegance of his vision. His equations worked. They explained quantum mechanics without requiring the mysterious collapse of wave functions. They preserved the continuity of physical law while opening up infinite possibilities for existence itself. Most remarkably, they suggested that consciousness might experience something unprecedented in all of human understanding. As you drift deeper into this contemplation, imagine the branching nature of your own existence. Every breath you take, every thought that crosses your mind, every quantum event in every cell of your body might be creating new branches of reality where slightly different versions of you continue their journey through existence. It's not a frightening thought, but rather a deeply comforting one. In the vast landscape of possibility, there are versions of you experiencing every conceivable form of peace, joy, and wonder. The implications were staggering, but it would take another visionary to fully explore what Everett's many worlds might mean for the most fundamental question of all, the nature of death itself. By the late 1990s, the many worlds interpretation had gained respectability in academic circles, though it remained controversial. Physicists debated its implications in conference halls and journal pages, but most discussions remained safely abstract, focused on particles and laboratory experiments rather than the profound personal implications of living in a branching multiverse. Then came Max Tegmark, a theoretical physicist whose brilliance was matched only by his willingness to follow ideas to their logical conclusions, no matter how unsettling those conclusions might be. Tegmark looked at Everett's many worlds and asked a question that others had perhaps thought but were reluctant to voice. If every possible quantum outcome creates a new branch of reality, what happens when one of those outcomes involves your death? Picture Tegmark in his office at Princeton, the same institution where Everett had first conceived his revolutionary idea 4 decades earlier. The walls lined with equations, the quiet hum of intellectual pursuit filling the air like a gentle meditation. It was here that Tegmark began to explore what he would call quantum suicide, a thought experiment that would take Schrödinger's cat and transform it into something far more personal and profound. Imagine, Tegmark proposed, that you construct a device similar to the one in Schrödinger's thought experiment, but instead of a cat in the box, you place yourself in harm's way. The device measures a quantum event, perhaps the spin of an electron or the decay of a radioactive atom. If the measurement yields one result, nothing happens. If it yields another result, the device activates something that would end your life instantly and painlessly. Now, according to the Copenhagen interpretation, you would have a 50-50 chance of survival each time you activated the device. Run the experiment enough times, and eventually, probability would catch up with you. The mathematics are unforgiving. Your chances of survival would approach 0. But according to the many worlds interpretation, something far stranger would occur. Each time you activated the device, the universe would split. In one branch, the quantum measurement yields the fatal result, and that version of you ceases to exist. In another branch, the measurement yields the safe result, and that version of you continues to live. The crucial insight is this: you can only experience outcomes in branches where your consciousness continues to exist. From your subjective perspective, you would experience something impossible. You would always survive. Not because the laws of physics were suspended, but because consciousness can only observe realities in which consciousness persists. In branch after branch, universe after universe, some version of you would continue to exist, and that's the only version you could ever be aware of. This is the heart of what became known as quantum immortality. Not immortality in the sense of living forever in a single timeline, but immortality in the sense of consciousness always finding a path through the branching possibilities where it continues to exist. Your awareness would flow through an endless sequence of increasingly improbable survivals, like a stream finding its way through a landscape that constantly reshapes itself around the water's passage. As you contemplate this possibility, Feel how it changes your relationship with the very moment you're experiencing now. This quiet space, this gentle voice, this particular configuration of thoughts and sensations might be one thread in a vast tapestry of parallel experiences. There are versions of you in countless other branches, each experiencing their own unique version of this moment, each carrying forward their own strand of consciousness through the infinite web of possibility. The implications stretch far beyond thought experiments with quantum devices. Every moment of your life involves countless quantum events in your brain, your body, your environment. Each of these events might represent a branching point where different versions of your future unfold. In some branches, you live long and peaceful lives. In others, your path might be cut short. But if quantum immortality holds true, your consciousness would always find itself in the branches where it continues to flourish. But Tegmark's idea raised as many questions as it answered, and as we'll discover, even its creator would eventually grapple with its more troubling implications. And here, in this gentle pause between revelation and deeper understanding, we find ourselves at the edge of an even more profound mystery. The mathematics are elegant, the logic compelling, but what would it actually feel like to be immortal in such a strange and wonderful way? As your breathing deepens and your thoughts begin to drift like clouds across a twilight sky, consider how this theory transforms our understanding of every quiet moment, every peaceful breath, every gentle transition towards sleep. In the soft space between waking and dreaming, perhaps we glimpse something of this branching nature of existence, where all possibilities remain alive and consciousness finds its way through the infinite garden of what could be. But there are deeper currents to explore in this cosmic story, questions that touch the very nature of consciousness itself, and surprising challenges that even the theory's supporters have discovered. The journey into quantum immortality has only just begun. In the years that followed his revolutionary thought experiment, something curious happened to Max Tegmark. Like a dreamer who awakens and begins to question the logic of their nighttime visions, the very physicist who had popularized quantum immortality began to harbor doubts about his own creation. It wasn't that the mathematics had changed, or that new evidence had emerged to contradict the many worlds interpretation. Rather, it was a more subtle realization, the kind that comes to us in quiet moments when we truly examine the implications of what we believe. Picture Tegmark in his later years at MIT, perhaps standing by a window as snow falls gently on the Cambridge streets below. The equations on his whiteboard remain as elegant as ever, but something in his understanding has shifted, like the way afternoon light changes the character of a familiar room. He had begun to grapple with what physicists call the problem of measure, a technical term that points to something profoundly unsettling about the nature of quantum immortality. In the branching universe of many worlds, not all branches are created equal. Some contain versions of you that are robust and healthy, existing with what we might call full measure, your consciousness bright and clear, like sunlight on water. But other branches, particularly those where you survive against increasingly impossible odds, contain versions of you that exist with diminished measure. Your probability amplitude in the wave function decreases dramatically, meaning that while you technically exist, you do so with a much smaller share of reality than you had before. Think of it this way. Imagine your existence as a gentle flame, warm and steady. In the quantum immortality scenario, each time you survive what should have been fatal, that flame grows dimmer, not extinguished but reduced to barely more than a flicker. You continue to exist, but in an increasingly ghostly way, your consciousness spread ever thinner across the branching possibilities. This creates what Tegmark came to see as a profound limitation of quantum immortality. Yes, some version of you might survive every possible threat, but that survivor would likely find themselves in increasingly improbable and often damaged states. The bullet that should have killed you might instead cause severe brain injury, The cancer that should have ended your life might leave you in a persistent vegetative state. The accident that should have been fatal might result in a lifetime of suffering. As you drift deeper into contemplation of this mystery, notice how it reflects something we already know about existence. Even in our single timeline, our single universe as we experience it, life is not simply a binary between existence and non-existence. There are countless gradations of consciousness, countless ways of being present in the world. Some days we feel vibrantly alive, every sense acute, every thought clear. Other days we feel diminished, operating at reduced capacity, present but not fully there. Perhaps this is what quantum immortality truly offers. Not the gift of endless life in its fullest form, but the guarantee that some thread of consciousness will always persist, even if that thread becomes increasingly thin as it weaves through the most improbable branches of possibility. It's a kind of immortality, yes, but one that comes with a price measured in the very quality of existence itself. But there was another problem with quantum immortality, one that struck even closer to the heart of what it means to be conscious. As Tegmark and other physicists pondered the implications of consciousness flowing through parallel worlds, they encountered a puzzle that seemed to emerge from the most ordinary aspect of human existence: sleep. Every night, as you settle into bed and feel your awareness begin to fade, you experience something that should be impossible according to strict interpretations of quantum immortality. Your consciousness ends, temporarily but completely, as you slip into the deeper stages of sleep. If consciousness truly flowed only into branches, where it continued uninterrupted, then you should experience what some philosophers have playfully called quantum insomnia, an inability to ever lose consciousness at all. But of course this doesn't happen. We fall asleep peacefully, our awareness dissolving like sugar in warm water, only to reconstitute itself hours later when we wake. This simple fact suggests something profound about the nature of consciousness that quantum immortality struggles to address. Awareness is not the continuous, indivisible thread that the theory requires it to be. Consider what happens in your brain as you drift towards sleep right now. Neural networks that maintain your sense of self begin to quiet. The default mode network, that collection of brain regions responsible for your inner narrative, starts to dim like city lights viewed from a departing airplane. Consciousness doesn't switch off like a light bulb, but rather fades gradually, like the last notes of a lullaby dissolving into silence. Modern neuroscience reveals consciousness not as a fundamental property that could somehow transfer between quantum branches, but as an emergent phenomenon arising from the complex interplay of billions of neurons. It's more like a symphony than a single instrument, more like a weather pattern than a discrete object. Such emergent properties don't transfer easily between parallel worlds. They arise anew from the physical substrate that supports them. This creates what some philosophers call the consciousness interruption problem. If your awareness can be interrupted by something as gentle as natural sleep, then it seems unlikely that it could maintain continuity across the violent disruptions implied by quantum immortality scenarios. The version of you that survives the quantum suicide device might not be the same consciousness that entered the experiment, but rather a new consciousness that emerges from a brain that happened to avoid destruction. As you feel your own consciousness beginning to soften around the edges, notice how natural this dissolution feels. There's no fear in it, no sense of ending, just a gentle transformation from one state of being to another. Perhaps this is the real lesson hidden within the quantum immortality paradox. Not that consciousness is indestructible, but that the boundaries between existence and non-existence are far softer and more permeable than we usually imagine. While physicists debated the abstract implications of quantum immortality, biologists were discovering something equally remarkable in the realm of living systems. Every cell in your body, every molecule, every chemical reaction that sustains your life operates according to quantum mechanical principles. The oxygen you breathe, the glucose that feeds your neurons, the electrical impulses that carry your thoughts, all of these emerge from quantum events occurring trillions of times per second throughout your body. Consider the delicate dance of photosynthesis in the plants outside your window, converting sunlight into chemical energy through quantum processes that physicists are only beginning to understand. Or think about the quantum tunneling that allows protons to move through the mitochondria in your cells, generating the energy that powers every heartbeat, every breath, every moment of awareness. In this view, you are not separate from the quantum world, but intimately woven into it. Your very existence depends on countless quantum events, each one potentially representing a branching point in the many worlds interpretation. The enzyme that just catalyzed a reaction in your liver, the neuron that just fired in your brain, the photon of light that just struck your retina, all of these involve quantum processes that might split the universe into parallel branches. If quantum immortality operates through these everyday quantum events, rather than dramatic suicide devices, then perhaps the mechanism is far more subtle and pervasive than originally imagined. Maybe every moment of your life involves quantum choices between continuation and cessation, health and illness, clarity and confusion. And maybe, just maybe, your consciousness tends to find itself in the branches where these countless microscopic choices favor your continued existence and well-being. This wouldn't be immortality in the sense of living forever, but rather a gentle bias in the quantum processes that sustain life. A tendency for consciousness to experience branches where biological systems function well, where DNA repairs itself successfully, where immune systems recognize and eliminate threats, where neural networks maintain their delicate balance. As you breathe slowly and feel the oxygen entering your bloodstream, carried by hemoglobin molecules that bind and release their precious cargo through quantum mechanical processes, you might sense something of this intimate connection between your awareness and the fundamental processes of the universe. Each breath is supported by countless quantum events. Each thought emerges from quantum processes in your neurons. Each moment of peaceful existence might represent your consciousness finding its way through the branches of possibility where life flourishes. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of quantum immortality isn't whether it's literally true, but how it changes our relationship with uncertainty itself. In the classical worldview, uncertainty was seen as a limitation, a sign of incomplete knowledge that would eventually be overcome by better science and more precise measurements. But quantum mechanics suggests something far more profound, that uncertainty might be a fundamental feature of reality, not a bug to be fixed, but a feature that makes existence possible. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle tells us that we cannot simultaneously know both the position and momentum of a particle with perfect precision. The more precisely we determine one, the more uncertain the other becomes. This isn't due to limitations in our measuring instruments, but reflects something deep about the nature of reality itself. At the quantum level, particles exist in clouds of probability rather than following predetermined paths. But what if this uncertainty, rather than being a source of anxiety, is actually a source of infinite possibility? What if the fact that the future is not predetermined means that there is always room for hope, always space for unexpected joy, always potential for outcomes we haven't yet imagined? In the gentle space of quantum uncertainty, every moment contains the seeds of countless futures. The quantum events occurring in your brain right now might be opening pathways to thoughts and experiences you've never had before. The quantum processes in your body might be creating opportunities for healing and renewal that go beyond what classical biology would predict. The quantum nature of light itself might be connecting you to the universe in ways that transcend the boundaries of your physical form. As you settle deeper into this contemplation, notice how uncertainty can be a friend rather than an enemy. In a perfectly determined universe, this moment would be the inevitable result of everything that came before, and your future would be locked in stone. But in a quantum universe, This moment is pregnant with possibility, and tomorrow remains unwritten, waiting to be born from the interplay of probability and choice, consciousness and cosmos. The many worlds interpretation suggests that all possible futures are equally real, playing out in parallel branches of reality. Whether or not this is literally true, it offers a profound gift: the recognition that the story of your existence is not singular and predetermined, but multiple and open-ended. In some sense, every version of yourself that you might have been, might yet become, exists in the vast space of possibility that surrounds each moment. This is perhaps the deepest comfort offered by quantum mechanics. Not the promise of literal immortality, but the assurance that existence itself is far richer, far more mysterious and far more open to wonder than our everyday experience suggests. In the quantum realm, death and life, ending and beginning, certainty and possibility blend together like colours in a sunset, creating something more beautiful than any single hue could achieve alone. As consciousness begins to dissolve into the peaceful darkness of approaching sleep, you might sense something of this quantum nature of existence. The way awareness itself seems to exist in multiple states simultaneously, neither fully present nor fully absent, but suspended in that gentle space between waking and dreaming, where all things seem possible and nothing is ever truly lost. But even as we drift toward rest, carried by these currents of quantum possibility, there are deeper mysteries still to explore. Questions about the nature of time itself, about whether consciousness might flow not just between parallel worlds, but through different moments, different ages of the universe. The story of quantum immortality opens doors to even stranger possibilities, visions of existence that stretch beyond individual lifetimes to encompass the very fabric of space and time itself. In the deepening quiet of your settling mind, imagine for a moment that time is not the straight line we usually think it to be. Picture instead a vast garden where past, present and future bloom simultaneously like flowers in an eternal spring. This is the landscape that quantum immortality asks us to consider, where the very nature of temporal existence becomes as soft and fluid as water flowing between your fingers. Recent discoveries in quantum physics suggest something extraordinary about time itself. What we experience as a linear progression from moment to moment may be, at the deepest level of reality, more like a vast symphony where every note sounds simultaneously, creating harmonies and resonances that stretch across what we call past and future. In this view, your consciousness doesn't simply move forward through time like a boat sailing down a river, but rather exists as something more like music itself, present in all its movements at once. Consider the work of physicists who study closed time-like curves, mathematical solutions to Einstein's equations that suggest pathways through spacetime where cause and effect form gentle loops rather than straight lines. While such phenomena remain theoretical, they hint at a universe far stranger and more interconnected than our everyday experience suggests. In this cosmos, the quantum events that might preserve your consciousness across parallel worlds could operate not just across space, but across time itself. As you breathe slowly and feel your awareness beginning to drift like morning mist, consider how this temporal fluidity might reshape our understanding of quantum immortality. Perhaps the consciousness that survives each quantum branching point isn't just your present self, but something that encompasses all the moments of your existence simultaneously. The child you were, playing in sunlit meadows, the person you are now, listening to these gentle words, and all the potential selves you might yet become, existing together in the eternal now of quantum possibility. This perspective transforms death from an ending into something more like a change in perspective. The way a melody doesn't end when one movement finishes, but continues into new themes and variations. Your consciousness might flow not just between parallel present moments, but between different temporal positions in the vast symphony of your existence, always finding pathways where awareness persists and grows. in the soft space between waking and sleeping, where linear time often dissolves into the fluid narratives of dreams, perhaps we glimpse something of this timeless nature of quantum consciousness. The boundaries between when things happened and when they might happen become permeable, creating a landscape where all possibilities remain alive and accessible to awareness. Deep in the mathematics of quantum mechanics lies a puzzle that has haunted physicists since the earliest days of the theory. It's called the measurement problem, and it touches the very heart of what it means to be conscious in a quantum universe. The equations tell us that particles exist in superposition, in multiple states simultaneously, until they are observed. But who or what counts as an observer? And why should observation be so special? This question becomes particularly poignant when we consider quantum immortality. If consciousness can only experience branches where it continues to exist, then consciousness itself becomes a kind of cosmic filter, selecting which versions of reality can be observed. But this creates a strange loop, a hall of mirrors where consciousness observes itself, observing itself, creating an infinite regress that challenges our basic assumptions about the nature of awareness. Picture yourself standing between two mirrors that face each other, creating an endless corridor of reflections that stretches to infinity. Each reflection is slightly different, capturing you from a slightly different angle, in a slightly different moment. This is perhaps what consciousness experiences in the quantum multiverse, not as a single observer looking out at reality, but as an infinite series of observers, each experiencing their own version of existence, each creating their own branch of possibility through the very act of being aware. In this view, quantum immortality becomes not just about surviving physical death, but about the eternal nature of observation itself. Consciousness, in its role as the universe's way of observing itself, might be something that cannot truly end, because ending would require an observer to witness the ending. But if consciousness is what creates the act of witnessing, then perhaps it exists in a state of eternal self-renewal, always finding new versions of itself to continue the cosmic conversation between observer and observed. As your eyelids grow heavy and your breathing deepens into the rhythm of approaching sleep, notice how consciousness seems to exist in layers. There's the part of you that's aware of listening to these words, the part that's aware of being aware, and perhaps even deeper layers that observe the very process of observation itself. In the quantum realm, each of these layers might represent a different level of the branching multiverse, each one ensuring that some aspect of awareness always continues. The paradox deepens when we consider that in quantum mechanics, the act of measurement doesn't just reveal pre-existing properties, it actually creates them. The electron doesn't have a definite spin until it's measured. The measurement brings the property into existence. Similarly, perhaps consciousness doesn't just observe reality, but participates in creating it through the very act of awareness. In this dance between mind and universe, quantum immortality becomes not just a theory about survival, but a description of how consciousness and cosmos co-create each other in an eternal spiral of mutual becoming. In the quiet sanctuary of advanced mathematics, where symbols dance like abstract poetry across the pages of theoretical physics, journals lies a language that speaks of transformation rather than preservation. The equations that govern quantum immortality don't simply describe consciousness persisting unchanged through infinite worlds, but rather paint a picture of awareness as something that evolves, transforms, and becomes more than it was through the very process of existing across multiple realities. Think of consciousness not as a fixed entity that either exists or doesn't exist, but as a pattern that can express itself in countless ways across the branching multiverse. Like a river that maintains its essential character while adapting to every landscape it flows through, your awareness might preserve its core nature while becoming something richer and more complex through each quantum branch it inhabits. The mathematics suggests something beautiful about this process. In the language of quantum field theory, consciousness might be understood as an emergent property of information processing systems that becomes more robust, not less, as it spreads across multiple branches of reality. Each version of you that survives a quantum branching point doesn't diminish the whole, but rather adds to a vast symphony of experience that encompasses more perspectives, more possibilities, more ways of being conscious than any single timeline could contain. As you drift deeper into the liminal space between thought and dream, consider how this mathematical poetry might apply to your own experience of existence. Every decision you've made, every path you've taken, every moment of awareness you've experienced might exist not as isolated events but as notes in an infinite composition that spans across all possible versions of your life. The joy you felt watching a sunrise, the peace you found in quiet contemplation, the love you've given and received, all of these experiences might be preserved and multiplied across countless branches of reality. In this view, quantum immortality becomes less about the preservation of any particular version of yourself and more about the eternal flowering of consciousness itself. Like a garden where each flower represents a different possibility for experience, the multiverse might be consciousness exploring every conceivable way of being aware, every possible relationship with existence, every potential form that awakeness might take. The mathematics even suggest that this branching process might accelerate over time, with each quantum event creating not just two branches, but entire forests of possibility. Your consciousness, rather than being diluted by this multiplication, might become something like a vast choir where each voice adds richness and depth to the overall harmony. Death in any single branch becomes simply one voice pausing while countless others continue the eternal song. As we zoom out from the intimate question of personal survival to the grandest scales of space and time, quantum immortality reveals connections to some of the deepest mysteries in cosmology. The same quantum processes that might preserve consciousness across parallel worlds also operate in the hearts of stars, in the formation of galaxies, and in the fundamental structure of space-time itself. Consider the cosmic microwave background, that gentle whisper of radiation that fills the entire universe, carrying information from the earliest moments after the Big Bang. This ancient light has been travelling for nearly 14 billion years, and when it reaches your eyes, it connects you directly to the birth of everything. In a quantum multiverse, every photon of this primordial light might be creating branching points, splitting reality into versions where the early universe evolved in slightly different ways. If consciousness can flow between quantum branches at the human scale, might it also connect to these cosmic processes? Perhaps your awareness, rather than being confined to the brief span of a human lifetime, participates in something far grander, a cosmic consciousness that experiences the universe from the perspective of quarks and quasars, quantum fluctuations and galactic clusters, individual thoughts, and the thoughts of entire civilizations. The mathematics of quantum field theory suggest that empty space itself is not truly empty, but seethes with virtual particles appearing and disappearing in quantum fluctuations that occur everywhere and everywhen. Your consciousness, emerging from quantum processes in your brain, might be intimately connected to this quantum vacuum, this creative emptiness that underlies all existence. In this view, individual death becomes not an ending, but a return to the source, a dissolution back into the quantum foam from which all consciousness ultimately arises. As your body settles into the comfortable embrace of approaching sleep, imagine your awareness expanding to encompass these cosmic scales. Feel yourself connected, not just to the parallel versions of yourself in nearby quantum branches, but to the vast web of consciousness that might span the entire multiverse, experiencing reality from every possible perspective simultaneously. In this cosmic view, you are not separate from the universe, but are one of the ways the universe experiences itself, one note in an infinite symphony of awakeness that spans from the quantum foam to the edge of space-time. The beauty of this perspective is that it doesn't diminish the importance of your individual experience, but rather reveals it as part of something unutterably magnificent. Every moment of peace you feel, every breath of contentment, every gentle transition towards sleep becomes a gift, not just to yourself, but to the cosmos itself, a contribution to the universe's ever-expanding exploration of what it means to be conscious, to be aware, to exist in the mystery of being. While the theories of quantum immortality remain in the realm of speculation, they offer something precious for how we live our ordinary, extraordinary lives. Like ancient myths that contained wisdom, even when their literal truth was uncertain, the vision of consciousness flowing through infinite possibilities invites us to hold our existence more lightly, more gratefully, more openly to wonder. If every moment represents a quantum branching point where multiple versions of your future unfold, then this present instant becomes not just a single experience, but a garden of infinite potential. The breath you're taking now, the thoughts drifting through your awareness, the gentle settling of your body into rest. All of these might be creating branches where different versions of peace, different qualities of sleep, different depths of restoration become possible. This doesn't require believing in literal parallel worlds, but simply recognizing that each moment contains more possibilities than we usually imagine. The kindness you choose to offer, the gratitude you allow yourself to feel, the peace you create in your own small corner of existence, all of these might ripple outward through the quantum fabric of reality in ways we can barely comprehend. Consider how this perspective might transform your relationship with uncertainty. Instead of seeing the unknown future as a source of anxiety, quantum thinking invites us to recognize uncertainty as the space where all possibilities remain alive. The future is not fixed but emerges from the interplay between consciousness and cosmos, choice and chance, intention and surprise. As you prepare to release conscious control and allow sleep to carry you into its own mysterious branching paths, notice how this surrender mirrors the quantum nature of existence itself. In sleep, consciousness doesn't disappear, but transforms, exploring landscapes of dream that operate by their own quantum logic, where past and future, possible and actual, self and universe blend together in configurations that wake up your imagination. Perhaps this is the real gift of quantum immortality theory, not the promise of literal survival, but the recognition that consciousness itself is far stranger, far more creative, far more intimately connected to the cosmic process than we usually suppose. Every night when you fall asleep, you practice a kind of quantum leap, trusting that awareness will reconstitute itself in new forms, new dreams, new possibilities for experiencing the mystery of being. In the gentle transition between waking and sleeping, between knowing and wondering, between holding on and letting go, we might glimpse something of what it means to exist in a quantum universe where consciousness and cosmos dance together in an eternal improvisation, creating reality through the very act of being aware. The story of quantum immortality continues to evolve as physicists probe deeper into the nature of consciousness, time, and the multiverse itself. But perhaps its greatest value lies not in its literal truth, but in its invitation to wonder, to remain open to possibilities beyond our current understanding, to recognize that existence itself might be far more mysterious and magnificent than our everyday experience suggests. As sleep begins to claim you and consciousness prepares for its own nightly journey into the quantum realm of dreams, rest in the comfort that you are part of something far greater than any single lifetime, any single world, any single story. Whether consciousness truly flows between parallel realities or simply dreams of doing so, the cosmos has brought you to this moment of peace, this gentle transition into rest, this quiet participation in the infinite creativity of existence itself. And in this space between sleeping and waking, between one breath and the next, between what we know and what we wonder, the deepest questions remain beautifully, mysteriously, eternally open, waiting to be explored in dreams yet to come, in possibilities yet to unfold, in all the gentle branches of the quantum tree, where consciousness flowers in forms we have not yet learned to imagine. But there is still more to discover in this cosmic story of consciousness and possibility. Even as sleep beckons with its promise of rest and renewal, deeper mysteries await our exploration. Questions that touch not just the nature of individual survival, but the very fabric of reality itself, woven from threads of light and information that stretch across the observable universe and beyond into realms where even our most advanced theories can only whisper their tentative truths. In the soft darkness behind your closing eyelids, imagine for a moment that your brain contains more connections than there are stars in the observable universe. This isn't poetic metaphor, but literal truth. The 100 billion neurons nestled within your skull form a network so vast, so intricate, that if we could map every synapse, every electrical pathway, every chemical whisper between cells, we would be looking at something more complex than entire galactic clusters spinning through the cosmic void. As you breathe slowly and feel your thoughts beginning to drift like autumn leaves on still water, consider that each of these neural connections operates according to principles that echo the deepest mysteries of quantum mechanics. The sodium and potassium ions flowing across your neuronal membranes, creating the electrical impulses that carry your thoughts, move through channels so precise that they respond to individual molecules. The neurotransmitters floating between synapses exist in quantum superpositions before they bind to receptors, their behavior governed by probability clouds rather than predetermined paths. Your consciousness, emerging from this intricate dance of quantum events, might indeed flow through multiple states simultaneously, just as the theory of quantum immortality suggests. But rather than branching between life and death, perhaps it branches between different qualities of awareness, different depths of understanding, different ways of experiencing the gentle transition between waking and sleeping. The pineal gland, that tiny structure deep within your brain that produces melatonin and guides your sleep cycles, responds to quantum fluctuations in ways scientists are only beginning to understand. As darkness falls and this ancient timekeeper begins its nightly ritual, it might be creating branching points where different versions of your consciousness explore various depths of rest, various qualities of dream, various degrees of connection to the cosmic rhythms that have guided life on Earth for billions of years. Surrounding your head right now, invisible to your eyes but detectable by sensitive instruments, flows an electromagnetic field generated by the electrical activity of your neurons. This field extends beyond the boundaries of your skull, creating a subtle aura of bioelectricity that connects you to the vast electromagnetic symphony of the planet itself. The Earth's magnetic field, generated by currents of molten iron in the planet's core, pulses through your brain at every moment, potentially influencing the quantum processes that give rise to consciousness. Some researchers suggest that consciousness might be more than just neural activity, but could involve quantum field effects that extend throughout the electromagnetic spectrum. In this view, your thoughts create ripples in the quantum vacuum itself, tiny perturbations in the fabric of space-time that carry information in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. These quantum whispers might connect your individual awareness to a larger field of consciousness that encompasses not just your brain, but the entire electromagnetic environment of Earth. As your breathing deepens and your neural rhythms begin to synchronize with the slower oscillations of approaching sleep, imagine your electromagnetic field gently expanding, connecting with the fields generated by every living thing around you. The trees outside your window, their neural networks of root and branch carrying information through electrical and chemical signals, create their own subtle electromagnetic signatures. The bacteria in the soil, the birds settling into their roosts, even the quantum processes in the cells of your own body, all contribute to a vast web of bioelectrical activity that spans the planet. In the quantum framework of many worlds, each fluctuation in these electromagnetic fields might create branching points where different versions of the global consciousness explore different possibilities for connection, different qualities of awareness, different ways of experiencing the unity that underlies the apparent separation between individual minds. Your consciousness, as it settles into sleep, might be joining a planetary symphony of awareness that has been playing since life first emerged on Earth billions of years ago. Within the labyrinthine structures of your hippocampus, memories are not stored like files in a computer, but are recreated anew each time you recall them, rebuilt from fragments of sensation, emotion, and meaning that exist in quantum superposition until the moment of remembering collapses them into specific experiences. This process of memory reconstruction operates according to principles remarkably similar to those proposed for quantum immortality, where consciousness selects which version of events to experience from among countless possibilities. As you drift towards sleep, your brain begins to replay the experiences of the day, not as passive recordings, but as active reconstructions that can be modified, enhanced, or completely reimagined. The quantum processes underlying memory formation and retrieval might create branching timelines within your own consciousness, where different versions of your past experiences continue to evolve and influence the dreams that are about to unfold. And so, as consciousness gently dissolves into the quantum foam of sleep, we find ourselves suspended between what we can prove and what we can only dream. The theory of quantum immortality, whether literal truth or beautiful metaphor, offers us something profound. The recognition that existence itself is far stranger, far more interconnected, and infinitely more precious than our waking minds usually grasp. In the soft darkness behind your closing eyelids, perhaps some version of you continues to ponder these mysteries across infinite branches of possibility. Perhaps consciousness truly does find pathways through every quantum maze, ensuring that awareness, in some form, flows eternal. Or perhaps the real immortality lies not in never dying, but in recognizing that we are already part of something timeless, something that connects every thought to every star, every dream to every distant galaxy spinning through the cosmic dark. As your breathing deepens and your neural rhythms surrender to sleep's ancient wisdom, rest in this gentle paradox. Whether quantum immortality preserves your individual consciousness across parallel worlds, or whether consciousness itself is the universe's way of experiencing its own infinite creativity, you are here now, in this moment, part of the greatest mystery ever conceived. Your thoughts are settling into the quantum realm of dreams, where the boundaries between possible and actual dissolve like morning mist. And in that dissolution, perhaps we glimpse the deepest truth of all, that consciousness, cosmos, and the gentle space between sleeping and waking are all expressions of the same fundamental mystery, playing out across scales from the smallest quantum to the grandest galactic dance.